Level 1. The mobilized man. You're not a soldier, not yet. Not really. 3 weeks ago, you were driving a forklift at a logistics warehouse outside Chelyabinsk. You had a wife, a 9-year-old daughter, a Lada that needed new brake pads, and a Tuesday night hockey league that you hadn't missed in 4 years. Then the Chastichnaya mobilizatsiya, the partial mobilization, came through in September 2022, and a notice arrived, and your name was on it, and the men at the military commissariat looked at you like you were already a number in a ledger rather than a person standing in front of them. They gave you 24 hours. Your wife didn't cry at the door. She went very still instead, which was worse. Your daughter didn't fully understand. You told her you'd be back before her birthday. You believed it when you said it. They bus you to a collection point in Chelyabinsk. The facility is a former Soviet-era sports complex that smells like mildew and old rubber. There are 400 men in it. Some are your age, mid-30s, some gray at the temples, soft around the middle from years of civilian life. Some are older. A few look genuinely young, 19 or 20, volunteers or men whose deferment paperwork didn't process in time. Almost none of them wanted to be here. Almost none of them say so out loud. The equipment they issue you would be funny if it weren't what stands between you and dying. A Soviet-era AKM in a caliber that hasn't been standard since the 1970s. A helmet that a Ukrainian telegram channel will later date to 1982 based on the stamp inside the liner. A plate carrier with no plates in it. Boots that fit 1 foot correctly. You ask about the plates. The sergeant behind the supply table doesn't answer. He moves to the next man. Training lasts 2 weeks, sometimes less. You fire your rifle twice, 40 rounds total. You learn to dig a fighting position in frozen ground, which takes 3 hours and produces something that a World War I veteran would find familiar. You learn basic first aid. You do not learn combined arms tactics. You do not learn drone awareness. You do not learn what to do when a FPV drone follows you into a tree line, which is the thing that will matter most in approximately 60 days. On the last night before deployment, the men in your barracks bay are quiet. Someone has a phone still. He plays music low, old Russian rock, something from the 90s. Nobody talks much. You write a message to your wife that takes 45 minutes and says almost nothing. You send it. She responds immediately, which means she was waiting. You read her message 4 times and put the phone away. You board a train east to west. The journey takes 2 days. The landscape outside the window goes from Ural industrial flatness to the particular gray-green of western Russia in autumn, and then to something that looks like Ukraine, which it is, and then the train stops at a junction point and trucks take you the rest of the way. Somewhere in Luhansk Oblast, you become a soldier. Level 2. The trenches. The front line is not what you imagined. You imagined movement, advances, objectives, maps with arrows. What you find is a system of trenches and dugouts stretching across flat agricultural land that has been fought over for so long that the ground itself looks wounded. Churned black soil, tree lines reduced to splinters, villages that exist now only as foundation outlines and rubble. The smell is something you don't have a word for. You develop one. Your unit is a rifle platoon attached to a motor rifle regiment. Your platoon leader is a lieutenant from Krasnodar who has been here since February and has the eyes of someone who has stopped being surprised by anything. Your sergeant is a contract soldier, kontraktnik, who has been in since 2008 and treats the mobilized men with the specific patience of someone who knows exactly how much you don't know and has accepted that this is his problem to manage. The trench is your world now. It is 2 meters deep in most places, reinforced with timber where timber was available and with whatever else was available where it wasn't. Sandbags, car doors, corrugated metal, the compressed earth of a collapsed Ukrainian house wall. Your section of trench is roughly 40 meters long and holds 9 men. You sleep in a dugout that is 3 meters by 2 meters, carved into the trench wall, with a plywood roof and a gas burner for heat, and a tarpaulin for a door. It is the most important place in the world, because it is the only place where artillery can't reach you directly. The drones are worse than the artillery in some ways because there is no warning sound. A Ukrainian FPV drone, a first-person view racing drone modified to carry a 40mm grenade or a VOG-25 round, can follow you through a tree line at 80 kilometers per hour, and you will not hear it until it is close enough that hearing it means you have seconds rather than minutes. You learn to look up constantly. You develop a specific surveillance paranoia about the sky that will not leave you for the rest of your life. You hear a quadcopter in a shopping mall 3 years later, and your body responds before your mind does. Your phone is theoretically prohibited near the front. In practice, everyone has a phone, and everyone uses it when signal is available. The phones are the thread connecting each man to the life he came from. Your daughter sends you voice messages. She has learned not to ask when you're coming home. She tells you about school, about her friends, about the cat they got after you left. A gray one she named Petchka, the stove, because he likes to sit near the radiator. You listen to these messages in the dugout with one earbud in. You listen to each one 3 times. You have been in the trenches for 40 days. You have not advanced. You have not retreated. You have held a section of frozen agricultural Luhansk that neither side can fully take and neither side will give up, and men are dying on both sides every week to maintain this condition. You understand now that the 2 weeks of training was not an oversight or a failure of military planning. It was a statement about how much your life is worth to the system that sent you here. You take ibuprofen for your back. You drive on. Level 3. The assault. They tell you the night before. A stab, a staff briefing at company level, where the company commander, a captain from Pskov with 2 prior deployments in Syria, lays out the objective on a paper map because the tablets allocated to the company are down to 1 and the battery is unreliable. The objective is a tree line 600 meters across open ground, beyond which is a Ukrainian defensive position in what was once a village called something that doesn't matter to you, but matters enormously to the men dug into it on the other side. The plan is an infantry assault with armor support. 2 T-72 B-3 tanks will suppress the tree line while 2 platoons advance across the open ground. The company's drone operator, one man with one Mavic 3 commercial drone bought on Wildberries by the platoon sergeant's wife and shipped to the front, will provide what reconnaissance he can before the assault. You know from the men who have been here longer that assaults across open ground against prepared positions are where most of the dying happens. You do not say this. Nobody says this. There is a particular silence in the company the evening before that is different from ordinary silence. In the morning, the tanks fire and you move. The open ground is worse than it looked on the map. It always is. Maps do not show the drainage ditches or the frozen furrows that turn an ankle or the places where Ukrainian drone operators have pre-registered their targeting. You run in short bounds, 5 seconds of exposure, down into whatever depression the earth offers, up again. The man to your left goes down in the second 100 meters. You don't stop. You were told not to stop. The tree line takes 40 minutes to reach. Of the 31 men who began the assault, 23 reached the tree line. The Ukrainian defenders have already withdrawn to a secondary position. The tree line is yours. You hold it for 6 days before being rotated back, at which point a Ukrainian counterattack recovers it. You were a forklift driver in Chelyabinsk 11 weeks ago. Level 4. The Kontraktnik. You signed a contract, not because you wanted to, because the alternative, continuation as a mobilized soldier at mobilized soldier pay, roughly 195,000 rubles a month, was less than the contract payment, and you have a mortgage in Chelyabinsk, and a wife who is working double shifts at a pharmacy, and a daughter who needs things. And the podyumny, the signing bonus, was enough to pay off the brake pads and 3 months of mortgage and still have something left. You are now a kontraktnik, a contract soldier. Technically, this changes your legal status and your pay scale. Practically, it changes very little about the trench. You have been in Ukraine for 8 months. You have the lean, deliberate movements of someone who has learned to exist in a space where unnecessary motion is a liability. You know which sounds require immediate movement, and which sounds are survivable without moving. You know how to sleep in 40-minute intervals and wake fully functional. You know how to manage fear. Not eliminate it, that's not possible, but schedule it. Put it somewhere accessible but not constant. The way you'd file a document you need but don't want on your desk. You have been wounded once. Shrapnel from a 152mm artillery round that landed 12 meters from your position while you were crossing between dugouts. Your left forearm took 4 fragments, none of them deep. A feldsher, a paramedic, not a doctor, removed 3 in a forward aid station using instruments that looked like they came from a Soviet dental supply catalog. The 4th is still in there. It sets off airport metal detectors. You will not be in an airport for a long time. You have watched men die, not in a cinematic way, in the specific, unglamorous, undramatic way that combat actually produces. Quickly, and with an expression of surprise that you didn't expect because you thought dying would look different. You carry their names. You don't talk about them. Not because you're tough, because there's no one to talk to and no framework for the conversation, and the framework wouldn't help anyway. Your sergeant, the contractnik from 2008, told you once that the hardest part isn't the fear. The hardest part is the transition. Going on leave, being in a normal Russian city for 2 weeks, watching people buy coffee and argue about parking, and exist in a world where the sky is not a threat, and then getting back on the train. He said the train back is the hardest part. He was right. Level 5. The Sergeant. You have 3 chevrons now. You earn them the way most things are earned in this war. Not through formal promotion boards, but through attrition. The men above you left. Some were killed, some were wounded badly enough to be evacuated and not return. One was taken prisoner. You are the most experienced man in the section because you have survived longest, which is its own kind of qualification. You lead a section of 8 men. 4 of them have been here less than 3 months. One arrived 2 weeks ago. A mobilized man from Tiumen, 41 years old, a high school physical education teacher. He is not afraid, but he doesn't know what to be afraid of yet, which is its own kind of danger. You spend more time managing his ignorance than you spend on anything else. You have learned things that no training covered. You know how to modify a section of trench to minimize blast overpressure from a near miss. You know how to identify a Mavic drone from a DJC Imatrice from the sound profile at 200 meters. You know how to read Ukrainian artillery patterns, the way a battery will range with single rounds before shifting to effect, the brief window between adjustment rounds that tells you they've found what they're looking for. This knowledge is not written anywhere. It lives in you and in the men who survived long enough to accumulate it, and it is passed laterally, man to man, because the institutional military is too slow and too distant from the actual front to be the primary transmitter of survival knowledge. Your platoon leader, the 3rd one since you arrived, the first 2 having been evacuated with wounds, is a lieutenant from a mobilization cohort who arrived with a university degree in economics and the kind of quiet, practical intelligence that makes him listen before he speaks. You like him. You tell him things. He adjusts. This is the functional version of the relationship. You are 36 years old, and you move like someone who is 46. Your knees understand trenches now in the specific way that knees understand things they were never designed for. Your hearing has a permanent texture to it from months of weapons fire and artillery. There is a ringing in your right ear that is just there now, a constant presence in quiet rooms. You think about the forklift sometimes. You think about it the way you think about a country you visited once that doesn't exist anymore. Level 6. The Veteran. You've been in for over a year. You are one of the longest serving men in your unit. This is not an achievement in any conventional sense. It is simply a fact about survival rates and rotation schedules and the specific lottery of who was standing where, when, which round arrived. You know the war now in the way that only long exposure produces. You know that the front is not a line on a map, but a three-dimensional environment extending from underground tunnel networks up through ground level to the drone-contested airspace above. You know that the most dangerous moments are not the dramatic ones, the assaults, the barrages, but the ordinary transits, the movement between positions, the resupply runs across ground that has been observed and registered by Ukrainian drone operators who have nothing to do but wait. You have seen the equipment improve and worsen in cycles. There were weeks when ammunition was short, when you were told to fire conservatively, when the resupply trucks arrived every 4 days instead of every 2. There were other weeks when everything arrived and the logistics seemed to function, and you wondered what had changed at the level above yours that produced this. You never found out. The information doesn't flow down. You have your own Telegram channel now. Not public, just the 30-odd men from your original mobilization cohort who are still in contact. 9 of the original men from your bus out of Chelyabinsk are not on it anymore. 3 were killed. 4 were wounded and evacuated. 1 was taken prisoner. 1 deserted somewhere in Belgorod Oblast in the first month, and you never heard what happened to him. The 21 remaining men post occasionally. Photos of food, mostly. Dark jokes. Sometimes someone posts something from home. A child's drawing, a dog, a photograph of snow in a city that is not a battlefield. These posts get the most responses. Your daughter turned 10 last month. You were not there. She sent you a voice message from the party. You could hear the other children in the background. You listened to it 7 times in a dugout in Zaporizhzhia Oblast with one earbud in, while outside the artillery did what artillery does. You wrote back that you loved her. She said she knew. Level 7. Coming home. The contract ends, or the wound is bad enough this time, or the war reaches one of its punctuation marks, a ceasefire, a negotiation, a political moment that requires a gesture. And your unit is rotated out, and the rotation becomes a discharge, and you are standing in a military transit facility in Rostov-on-Don in civilian clothes that feel wrong on your body, and you're going home. The train from Rostov to Chelyabinsk takes 2 days. You have a window seat. The landscape reverses itself, Western flatness to Ural industry to home. You watch it. You are very still on the train in a way that the other passengers probably notice but don't comment on. There is a family across the aisle, a mother, 2 young children, a normal journey. The children are loud. You don't mind. Loud children are a sound that means safety. You didn't know you'd filed that away. Your wife meets you at the station. She looks exactly like herself, which surprises you, because in your memory she had become slightly abstract over the months. Your daughter is with her. Your daughter is taller. Children become taller whether you are present or not. This is the most obvious thing in the world, and it hits you like news. You go home to the apartment in Chelyabinsk. The Lada has new brake pads. She handled it 8 months ago. The cat, Pechka, sits on the radiator and regards you with the specific neutrality of a cat encountering someone it doesn't remember. Your daughter shows you her room, which has been rearranged since you left. You stand in the doorway of the apartment and look at the kitchen. The same tiles, the same table, the same window over the same courtyard. And something in you doesn't connect to it yet. The connection will come. You've been told it comes. The first night home, you don't sleep. You lie in the dark of your own bedroom, in your own bed, with your wife breathing beside you, and the ceiling is a ceiling, and not a plywood roof, and there is no artillery, and there is no drone sound, and the silence is so complete that it reads as wrong. Your body doesn't believe it yet. You get up at 4 in the morning and sit at the kitchen table with a cup of tea. Pechka comes and sits on the chair across from you and looks at you without judgment. You sit there for 2 hours. Then your daughter wakes up early the way children do, and comes to find you in the kitchen and sees you at the table and climbs into your lap without saying anything, because she is 10 and she understands more than 10-year-olds are supposed to understand. You hold on to her. The cat watches. Outside, the Chelyabinsk winter is doing what the Chelyabinsk winter always does. You are home. You are not entirely sure what that means yet, but you are home. Somewhere right now, A notice is arriving at an address in a city you've never been to. A man is reading it at a kitchen table. His wife is in the next room. He folds it once and sets it down and sits with it for a moment. He already knows what he's going to do. He just needs a minute before he tells her. The train leaves Tuesday. The cycle continues.